The speed adjuster, for some reason, is not going down as low as I want. So what we're going to do is adjust the speed. So this is fixed all the way down. The machine is going as slow as it can go. We're going to leave it there at the 369 RPMs. And we're going to see how that's going to work for the steel piece. One of the things that we want to do here, we got enough room that we could use our hands to cut. The problem sometimes is you get lost on what side of the line that you need to cut. So you always want to cut to the waist side. And you want to give yourself enough room that you could come down, let's say for instance, go to the sander or the deburrer and get that piece down to where the mark is. So we want to stay away from our mark, but at least you're cutting on the waist side. Okay, so what we found out is this needs to be up a little bit more. It's kind of dragging. What we're going to do is shut the machine off, unlock the guide, take it up just a little bit more, and then we'll lock it back down. Now, since we have a situation where I'm too close, because sometimes when you're cutting, you have to think about this. Sometimes the metal is soft in different places. So if you're using your hands to cut this through, sometimes that'll go through quicker than you think. If your finger's in the way, you'll know. So turn the machine on. Turn the machine off, wait till the blade stops moving. Take your piece of metal that you cut out. Now if you take a look, there's enough room here to either hand file or deburr so that you get the 45 degree that we want. Okay? This piece right here is going to be hot, so you have to be careful where you move it around or touch it. Put it on the floor and let it sit there. We'll clean up afterwards. So this right here is a rough cut for the 45. Then what we're going to do is we're going to hand file a little bit or put it on the deburring machine, which of course is a different class, but we've got to use it. So what I did is I went to the deburrer machine, which of course will be a different class, but what I did was cut this 45 so there's no burrs on it, and I got my 45 degree that I need to do. Next, we're going to set the machine up to cut the aluminum piece. Now, remember this is laid out so that it's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and we're going to cut as close to the line as possible, and then we will file it and deburr it. Now, since we're set as far as we could go with the 369 RPMs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up about 200 more than what it is. So we'll take it up to about 569, and then I'll have to figure out what's going on with my machine. So we're not trying to chase that RPMs. We got it set at 585 RPMs. Now, when you're looking at this blade, the one thing that I forgot to mention that we need to make sure is that the cutting motion is down. This rotates around this piece, and the cutting motion has to come down. It cannot come up. So if the blades are pointed upwards, you have to reverse it. We're going to have to adjust the height. Unlock it. And lock it down. Like I had mentioned before, you want to get the blade to do the work. Don't push. Let it cut and just follow it as you can. If you notice, we got about a 1/16 of an inch from the line, so you should be able to still see the line. You want to keep it that way because what you're going to do is you're going to adjust it up so that everything fits right. I'm going to go ahead and I'll file this down on the deburrer. And on this deburrer, when we get there, you'll understand this metal is okay to put on the deburrer, but sometimes the metal might be too thick. So we have to watch that. One thing that you have to remember whenever you're using any kind of equipment, be it this vertical bandsaw or the deburring machine that I just got finished using, it is ran by friction. The deburring machine has a belt on it, and it does cause heat. The aluminum will conduct the heat better than the steel. So you could actually hold on to the steel a little bit longer than the aluminum. The heat will draw it down, and you got to be careful when you're holding it. But just like anything else in this shop, if I've got moving parts, I don't want you to wear gloves. You are going to have a quench tank close enough by where you're at to quench it. So what we did is we got our 45 degree on the aluminum piece, and we got our 45 degree on our steel piece. We're going to double check this, and then we're going to go back to the board to make sure that's what we have. The main thing that I want you to pull out of this is safety. The push bar, the guards, the speed, and the safety switches. You have to be sure that all those are in place. One of the things that I did not mention, there is no machine guard on this machine. Right now, having safety glasses on is enough for this because the sparks don't go anywhere or anything like, or the chips don't go anywhere. But you could always use a second portion, a second part of safety for your eyes, which is a shield. So what we want to do is we want to use this 45 degree to make sure that we have a good 45 degree. If we see a space in between there or light, then what we're going to do is we're going to hand file it using a single cut hand file. Now, if you take a look at this, I have a high spot in the center. So I'm going to take that high spot out and get our 45 degrees. See the light that's in between there? So we're going to put it in the vise, and what we're going to do is we're going to make our 45 the flat portion of our working area. You don't want to put it off to the side like this, because that's not going to give you a balanced piece or a flat piece. So we want to put it so that it's nice and flush this way. To make sure that it's a good fit, what we're going to do is any file that we have, you're going to use them correctly. The file itself cuts forward and not back, so you don't move it back and forth. You cut it forward like that. The way that we do this, if you want to cut a better portion straight, you're going to hold the file perpendicular to the piece, and what you're going to do is run this back and forth at an angle. Now, to check this, the easiest way to check this is you take a marker and you mark to the top. Then you take a cut with the file, and we could see where the high spots are. All right. So if you take a look at this, see the portion where the file gets the cut? That's the high spot. So what we want to do is take that marker and take it completely down to a shiny file. If you notice, I'm picking up the file as I come back. The only cutting portion is forward. Once we get where we feel like it's going to be okay, we'll deburr the edge, and we'll come back over here using our 45 degree. And if you notice, there's no space. So, vertical bandsaw, we have our measurements that we're working with: a 45 degree on a steel piece, a 45 degree on an aluminum piece. We have our notes, and what I said I didn't put on there is the allowance. So since I didn't put an allowance, what I want to do is set an allowance for this project. What we did is set a bilateral tolerance or allowance of 1/16 of an inch. What that means is you have the option of being a 16th over or a 16th under. Just as a recap, in conclusion, we secured our tools, which is very minimal. We laid out the material. We inspected our machine by going over all the safety aspects of our machine. We cut the material. We filed it to size. We deburred it using the deburrer machine. Only thing left is to make sure I clean it and I return the tools to where they belong. And this is very important. Clean it after you use it, unless, of course, you're not the last one, and return the tools where they belong.